Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Cioffi on this Wednesday. Kind of wanted to do it a little later today. I figured I'd wait for the new GFS since I have a little time. And I want to take a look today specifically, rather than go through what we usually go through before we get to the models. I'm going to spend most my time on this today. We have a few things happening. First off, we have high pressure up in upstate New York this morning, and that continues to create an onshore flow. But onshore flows bring in moisture, but they also, after a while, can bring in dry air depending on the positioning of the high, and that's exactly what's happened. We've gotten drier air coming down from New England that has spread westward across the coastal areas, and it's worked its way inland. So weather's actually turning out to be pretty nice. So we've got a nice breeze if you're right along the immediate coast, which I actually just was a little while ago. It's a nice northeast breeze coming in. The air's got a cool, dry, low humidity feel to it, and that's nice. But we've got some changes. There's a cold front that's approaching that is going to be coming in here for tomorrow, and we'll roll this along on the models, and we'll take a look at where it takes us, because the Storm Prediction Center did have a pretty large area that's shown to be a slight risk for severe weather. In fact, I'm going to pull that up. This is a satellite view from earlier today, by the way, just to show you. Here's all that. There's dry air right through here that kind of just nosed its way down to the coastline. There's a bank of clouds that runs pretty much along the west of the Hudson River and inland New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania, and even into central and southern New Jersey. We have a lot of clouds, probably some breaks in there, but this nice little patch of mostly sunny skies has developed right in there. So I'm sitting in that, and I'm enjoying it. So let's jump off to the severe weather risk, and we'll take a look at what it has for today, which no thunderstorms at all, obviously, in the Northeast. And you've got a slight risk of severe weather in northwestern Illinois, Iowa, extreme southwestern Wisconsin, and northern Missouri. Larger area of marginal risk there, and a marginal risk back through Nevada. Kind of looks like a map you would normally see in the latter part of July. Now, here's the severe weather risk for Thursday, and this was actually the same forecast from yesterday. Hasn't really changed very much. Fairly large area of slight risk of severe, running from the western half of Long Island, the Hudson Valley, and southwestern Connecticut, south and west through much of eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, the Delmarva Peninsula, down through Virginia, West Virginia, and back through Kentucky, Tennessee. And that large area of marginal risk covers all of New England and upstate New York, and goes all the way back through the Ohio Valley, down in the mid-Atlantic states, and out to the middle Mississippi Valley. So the risk is there. Now, that might just mean, by the way, that it could be scattered cells rather than an actual line of thunderstorms. And we'll roll the GFS through. Now, here's the front tomorrow night, just about getting ready to pass, and there it is right there. So you can see it does generate some moisture there. So you look at the short-term models with this, it really wasn't all that bullish. Now, here's a wave on the front. This is what we're watching for Friday night and Saturday as that moves toward the east. Let me take that off. Just real fast, we'll show you the NAM. See, the NAM doesn't really do very much with that front at all. It hardly produces any thunderstorms. I wasn't really particularly impressed with the dynamics here, but I could be wrong. You look at the 3-kilometer NAM with this front, it really does next to nothing with regards to that. And the other short-range models aren't out far enough. We'll just take a look at the RGEM, because that hits home runs every once in a while. And this is the Canadian short-range model. And even here, I mean, a few scattered thunderstorms move on through, but nothing crazy. And then, of course, you've got the rain with the developing wave that by Friday morning is already up into northern West Virginia. You can see the RGEM's view of this. Here's the new NAM's view of it, which is a little bit more of a subdued look and further southwest with the surface low. The NAM takes that low, brings that a shield of rain here during the day, Friday into Friday night, and then by Saturday morning, the early morning hours, the rain is done. So it's actually a little bit faster in bringing rain up. And then there's your surface low, which goes out off the Delmarva Peninsula. So this is going to create northeast winds again. Initially, it'll create southeast winds on Friday. That'll probably be a good influx of warm Atlantic moisture that gets involved with this low, and then the low moves out. It's actually fairly, for this time of year, to see a 995 millibar low off the New Jersey coast is pretty impressive. So it might get a little breezy for a while Friday night into Saturday morning, and I think Saturday might be a day where temperatures are going to struggle until the sun comes out, and they have a tough time. They'll be certainly down in the 60s while it's raining, and then it pulls away. So if the timing is right on this, we'll have improving weather conditions in the Northeast on Saturday, except for coastal New England. And Sunday looks like a very good day with high pressure building in. So let's look at the GFS on this. And I tend to think, the GFS has been kind of struggling with how far north we take this surface low, which goes from northern Virginia off the New Jersey coast. You can see where the heavy rains with this are going to be in southeastern Pennsylvania and central and southern New Jersey with respect to the GFS, whereas the NAM has it further north. It actually develops a pretty large area of heavy rain along the Jersey coast and just offshore on Saturday morning. So in some ways, the GFS is a little slower in pulling the low out. So this will certainly would mean a lot of clouds on Saturday and temperatures probably in the 60s and low 70s, and then a really nice day on Sunday. I'm kind of going to lean to the idea that we'll have rain developing on Friday, and it'll be done by daybreak Saturday. And then Saturday, we're going to be spending it chewing through leftover clouds and dealing with the cooler conditions that'll be around. That's sort of going to be my view on this. In terms of total rainfall, and this also becomes a huge guessing game with regards to where the max amounts happen. Now, take a look at the GFS, for example. The maximum rainfall, because it has a track further south, running from southernmost New Jersey over Maryland, Delaware, lesser amounts. The half-inch rainfall amounts make it to about New York City, and much less in northern New Jersey. A few pockets of heavier precip, but this is a cumulative precip, so that's probably more with the Hudson Valley system. The cold front that comes through, because it produces some cells up there. This is just the 24-hour rainfall from this system for Friday into Saturday, and you'll notice that there's very little that gets under a half an inch across Long Island and New York City, and that the big amounts again would be in central and southern New Jersey with that southern track. While you look at the NAM model, we'll put the precip here. Now we're going to have total precip on this. Does it have the 24-hour? No, it doesn't. So the NAM, we're looking at total precip, and you can see it's got blotches of 2-inch plus rainfalls and even some 3- and 4-inch amounts over eastern Long Island and southeastern New England in response to the intensifying low. So trying to forecast, specifics with rain and systems this time of year, because of the fact that there could be so much convection involved in some of the convective development in some of these systems, that you're going to get wide variation. So I think the best way to approach it is that somebody's going to get a 1 to 2 inch rainfall, maybe a few amounts higher than that before it all pulls away and things get better. Now, in the longer range, I'm going to put up the above normal, below normal temperatures. So obviously temperatures for Saturday are going to be well below. Look at the large area of below normal temperatures for the weekend, running almost the entire eastern half of the United States is below average. And we only have, this is the NAM, by the way. I'll switch it to the GFS. And the GFS, same idea, although for some reason it's got this little pocket of above average for that 6-hour period, but it's below average through the weekend. I'm not sure, why is it doing that? That's really odd. And then we move into next week, below average uh, right along and south of 40 degrees north and above average north of 40 degrees north. And there you have it through the middle of next week. Nothing crazy here. So why don't we examine what the upper air is telling us? First off, let me show you the first system that we're dealing with. So you have this trough right in here. This is responsible for the cold front that's going to be moving through. And that upper low just sort of sits there in eastern Canada. So you get this second lobe of energy. And actually at this point in the upper air, this upper air system is pretty impressive looking. The problem in the forecast is that it moves southeastward and then it opens up. So it reaches its peak intensity here and then begins to weaken. And it's also progressive. That is, it's moving west to east. It's got a positive tilt to it. It doesn't have a negative tilt to it, which would be a trough that's tilted northeast, northwest, southeast. This is tilted northeast, southwest. And those systems tend to be weaker and they move along. And notice there's a little bit of it gets left over as we move through the weekend, but it doesn't really have much consequence for us. And then the jet stream kind of pulls up just a little bit as we move through next week, so that could bring back higher temperatures and higher humidities, although I wouldn't necessarily look at this as anything too extreme. The NAM on the upper air, because the NAM brings the rain further north. Here's our trough on the NAM. So the NAM actually has a bit, it does the same thing, but it has the trough a little bit sharper coming through Friday night into Saturday. So that would probably be the reason why it lifts it up more to the north. And you can see how the flow is here. It's not backed all the way around. If it were backed all the way around, then you'd be talking about large rainfall for everybody, for a large area for a long period of time, especially if that upper low were to cut off and get left behind. But it really doesn't do that. So I think we'll just work. We're going to work through whatever we work through. The Storm Prediction Center, again, with that risk of slight risk for severe weather. But looking at what's on the front and the fact that the air is dry here and it's cool. I just wonder just how much thunderstorm activity you're going to get. And when we move into Friday, of course, everything shifts southward. So you have a marginal risk from New York City along and south of, say, Route 78, back through Pennsylvania. From there south, it's marginal risk. And then your slight risk shifts south of the low track. So, your low center is going to be up here. Here's your warm sector, okay, which is going to be south of the warm front and east of the cold front. So here's where your warm sector sets up for Saturday. And after that, of course, it's gone for Sunday. And Sunday should be a fine day across much of the Northeast and the northern portion of the Mid-Atlantic states. Quick check of the tropics, which there is a system that has moved off the African coast, which the GFS does a little bit with, but not very much. I'll go to the North Atlantic region here, and we can follow it along. And here's how the upper air looks, by the way, with respect to everywhere east of the Rockies out to the west coast of Europe. So, here's your trough in the east. Here's your very strong, by the way, this upper ridge that's sitting out in the Atlantic, well east of Bermuda, is very, very strong. The heights are quite high. Here's your jet out in the Atlantic like this. And if anything were to develop here, there's your alleyway, by the way, for it to turn north and northeastward, assuming that that's where all the features were to stay in their place, which they really don't. The upper trough pulls out of the east. There's your ridge. And you see how that ridge kind of builds back in the east a little bit. The jet, temporarily anyway, pulls up. This was indicated by the models a few days ago. So here's the new GFS. So here's your jet stream for the middle part of next week. So this kind of tells me that, it could certainly get very warm to hot for the middle part and latter part up like this. Yep, zoom in. and your Canadian jets up to the north. So once this happens, at least for a couple of days, we're going to see the jet pull up. The question is, will it be just as it has been in the longer term, which is what we've been observing for quite a while, in that these occasional pull-ups that happen last for a couple of days, and then you wind up seeing the jet stream reverting back to the idea of the troughing in the east and a ridge in the west. And by the way, I'm going to punch up last night's European. The European does have a similar idea, and the European at least tries to bring back some troughing later next weekend. You can see the jet starts to lower a little bit, and the ridge starts to pop up again back in the west. So that really has been the signature this summer. And when we look at last night's GFS, which we can go back far enough to see what happens, there is some semblance of troughing in the east. It's not particularly strong, but it is there. But you do wind up going back to the idea of a trough in the east. It also does this thing where it develops blocking high up in north central Canada, in south central Canada, and it brings a trough into the west. So if this is correct, in the long range on the GFS, it wants to change the overall profile of the upper air by eliminating that ridge in the western part of the U.S., but still having some troughing in the east. A little bit of a blocking high there, kind of a split flow where the flow splits down. You can see here's one jet that goes up that way, and then you have this other jet that's down this way, and you have your high out in the Atlantic, your Azores Bermuda high. So here's your flow in the tropical Atlantic. I'm sorry, I neglected to show you. Let's look at what it did with respect to any kind of tropical systems through all of this. And here we have, let me go back, at least out 16 days. It doesn't really show very much, but we do have, this little surface low that it has starts to take it out to the west. It's hard to find it, actually. It just kind of meanders it there. And then here's a more definable one as we move into early next week, some sort of definable low that moves across into the northern leewards, but then it just loses it. It just disappears. Let me see if the Canadian is out far enough, because we know that the Canadian usually has, and I knew it, the Canadian usually has a reputation for spinning things up, and indeed it did. So here's today. And tonight, and then on Thursday, rather, there's that low forms out. It actually has it as a tropical storm by Sunday, and then moves it west-northwestward. And you can see it's already turning, by the way. If this is even real, it's responding to the upper trough. Let's put that up. See, it's going to respond. We only have it out to 120 hours, but you still have some troughing here off the East Coast, and your system is probably responding to some kind of weakness that develops in the subtropical ridge that's out in the Atlantic. So, we may have something to watch out there. We may not. Let's see how it plays out over the next few days. I hope everybody has a great rest of your Wednesday. Kind of short on time here, so I don't think I'll be able to hang around for a chat, but we'll touch base with you again later today on meteorologistjoecioffi.com, and of course on Facebook. If you're not on my Facebook page, join up, because there's a lot of stuff that's on there weather-wise. If you're a weather geek, particularly if you're in my neck of the woods, which is Long Island, New York City, New Jersey, Hudson Valley, eastern Pennsylvania, southeastern New York. Even want to conclude down to Delaware and Maryland and on up through Rhode Island and Massachusetts. We look at the entire area. Okay, upstate New York too, because I like to go up to Saratoga to watch the horses, and then maybe take a ride up to Lake Ontario to do a little fishing, which I'm going to be doing soon. Okay, so everybody have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.